ourselves the Elite.
If not us, who?
A little bit of the bubbly.
And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
This is an official declaration of war.
Change the world.
We are gonna change the whole universe! This is what you call a paradigm shift.
Will you follow us?
All Elite Wrestling.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for a very special side chapter of the only professional wrestling podcast that is changing the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
What's up, dude?
This is a very special episode of Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. Many fans have reached out to us and asked for an opportunity to catch up to the story so far, to get to know the roster if they're new to the product. We'll be discussing all of that as we move into the debut of AEW Dynamite, which premieres less than 1 week from now on October 2nd, 2019. At noon Eastern on that day, we will be launching our Patreon. For those of you who love the show, you can score more content and exclusive perks from JD and I while helping to make this show better every week. We hope you keep an eye out for it. We're going to have a lot of fun over there. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Jonathan and I are two friends, fans, lovers of professional wrestling who are here every single Monday morning. I guess
We gotta change that.
One more Monday. With all the latest news from All Elite Wrestling.
Man, next week's gonna suck.
This is not a sports entertainment show. It's an entertaining sports show supported by fans like you from all over the world on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars. Just like Meltzer, it makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy.
Too sweet. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite. Twitter @Seeing the Elite. And if you really want to be part of our ring crew, tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite gets you the invite to our Discord server. Shout out to the Discord champ, Pumpkin Skull, as we move forward. That's where the crew is. That's where we're hanging. News as it comes out, including some of the big stuff that dropped this week. No time codes this week because fuck that. Going to be talking about a lot of different stuff, and it would be...
Doing time codes on this episode, I would hate you.
It'd be person's name and then 2 minutes, and then person's name and then 2 minutes, right?
If we're lucky, 2 minutes.
right. So we're going to start. We're not starting with a quote. This is a side episode. The structure's going to be all different. If you're used to how we usually do the show, going to be different because
Come back Monday.
We have to cover this story so far that's been going on, since January. So it's important for us to sort of format the show a little differently than we usually do. And I think the most important story to tell is really the story of the Fed. All Elite Wrestling is a brand new professional wrestling organization owned and operated by Tony Khan, son of the auto parts titan and Jacksonville Jaguars owner Shad Khan. Tony is a lifelong professional wrestling obsessive with a true love for the art form and a genius level mind for dates, stats, and sports history. AEW is Tony's baby, but he's not in the fight alone. From the very beginning, he enlisted the help of 4 of pro wrestling's hottest free agents: Matt and Nick Jackson, also known as the Young Bucks; Cody Rhodes, the son of American pro wrestling legend The American Dream Dusty Rhodes; and Japanese pro wrestling icon Kenny Omega. Together, just over 1 year ago, these 4 men shocked the pro wrestling world, selling out Chicago's Sears Center Arena in mere minutes for a one-off pay-per-view of their own design. A short sort of final powerful eruption from an independent wrestling groundswell that had been bubbling for close to a decade at that point. Fueled by the power of YouTube, which had given the Young Bucks the platform they needed to build a legion of fans all over the world via their weekly travelogue / skit series, Being the Elite, AEW was perhaps officially birthed on January 8th in Jacksonville, where they held a rally to announce the inception of the league and some members of the roster, such as Hangman Page, Pac, and Chris Jericho, and their very first event, Double or Nothing.
Yeah, so at Double or Nothing, that was the kickoff. That was the birth of everything. Mm-hmm. It was on pay-per-view as billed as the sequel to All In mm-hmm. from Chicago, but as well as just the birth of a new promotion. It was on pay-per-view from the sold-out MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada on May 25th, 2019. The response was huge, due in equal parts to the high-quality content and the high production values that were presented forth to us. Since then, the company has launched 3 sold-out follow-up events: Fighter Fest, which was a free-to-view event at the CEO Gaming Convention; Fight for the Fallen, a free-to-view benefit show for victims of gun violence, specifically in Jacksonville; and All Out, the actual sequel to All In that was presented from the same building on the same weekend 1 year later. And now we come to the big reason why we're here. AEW Dynamite, the live television product, will begin airing on TNT in the United States, ITV4 in the UK, and the Fight Network globally was announced on May 15th, 2019. It will mark the... Was it announced on the 15th?
It was.
Really?
It was announced that long ago.
Damn.
I went back and looked for the article. It was like, Jesus, it really was before Double or Nothing that we...
Wow, that's surprising. So, yeah, it's the first time we will have professional wrestling on a Turner network since March 26, 2001, which was the date that WCW officially ended. The premiere will air less than 1 week from today, as you're listening to this, live at 8 p.m. Eastern from the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. As many of our wrestling fans know, this is the same time slot that is currently held by WWE's NXT, which was moved to this spot on the competing USA network by the industry titan in an effort to do some counter-programming. This is the latest volley in their counter-programming, with some other counter-programming for Fight for the Fallen and Double or Nothing, as well as various times. As such, the show's victories and failures will be measured in contrast to what is being provided by WWE. This is important because WWE has long been accused of underserving or intentionally combating their core audience, with the NXT product and program being the one shining, genuinely well-liked product for the hardcore wrestling fan. This issue on its own was Tony Khan's primary motivation for starting AEW. He is quoted as saying, 20 years ago, there were 12 million people watching wrestling on a Monday. Now there are 2 million people watching wrestling on a Monday. I think those 10 million people are still out there. In fact, I know they are. Tony's lifelong love of pro wrestling gives him insight here. He feels he can provide what the hardcore wrestling fan wants because, well, let's be honest, he is the hardcore wrestling fan. He's more hardcore than we are. Right. And if anyone has taken the time to listen to his interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin on his podcast, mm-hmm. He can ramble off dates of just key events, just bam, bam, bam,
He's
bam.
a very special
it's
mind, man. Very special mind.
Yeah. He goes on to say, I did this for us. For a long time, no one has cared about the wrestling consumer. That changes because I am the wrestling consumer.
Yeah, Tony Khan is really the linchpin in all of this, and I don't know if there is... I mean, none of this is there without him. He's the guy with the resources behind it. I think so many have stepped up to be the next WCW since then. We've heard it for every promotion that's gotten a little bit of heat behind it since WCW, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean... Ring of Honor was the front runner for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. Impact was the spiritual successor for a long time, having much of their talent going to TNA and Impact, as it was called then.
When New Japan Pro Wrestling World was available in America, people started making comparisons. Everybody makes a comparison who's going to step up to challenge the Titan. And the unfortunate fact of the matter is, as we've talked about on this show in the past, you can't step up to face a Titan the level of WWE's stature without the resources to do so. Otherwise, you're unfortunately just nothing but a good idea. That's why we have...
There was a reason why it was WCW that competed for so long, because in the late 80s, early 90s, even to the early 2000s, before it collapsed, it was a billionaire versus a billionaire.
Right.
Two guys who loved wrestling, who were willing to throw as much money as possible at it. Now, that bit Ted Turner in the ass because, in large part, because of WCW, he was ousted from his own company. And then WCW died a very slow, terrible death. But, yeah, I mean, we know as things have come out since before All In, Tony has had his hand involved and helped out just because he wanted to see an awesome wrestling show.
The fact of the matter is, without Tony Khan, without this plan, without the resources that they have, we see it all the time in business. We see it. There's a PepsiCo and there's a Coca-Cola, and there's a bunch of other little companies that make soda, but they're not going to war with Coca-Cola. You know, that's just not going to happen.
They know better not to.
Well, because they physically can't. In business, it's knives and guns, right? Like there's no combating really. And without Tony Khan, pretty much everyone who's here would either still be on the indies or in WWE at this point. So he's really, I think, the most important and probably the most historically fascinating figure of all of this. And will end up being that as well. Everybody else is just sort of playing along in the industry because at the end of the day, you need content, right? But I think the story here is going to end up being Tony Khan versus Vince McMahon for a little while longer until it's Tony Khan versus Triple H, basically, and what they can build against one another. Because at the end of the day, they're the directors and the talent is the actors, right? So,
we really only have maybe about 6 months to a year of Vince actually being involved before his little pet project takes over his time. Which is going to be a very interesting time to see.
Is that still happening or what?
Yes.
Jesus.
They have announced team cities and team names.
Oh, my God. Oh, man.
Money's still out on if it'll get a full season because it didn't last time.
Let's talk about our cast of characters here. This is perhaps really the meat of this for people who are looking to get into it. I mean, as far as the rest of the story goes, it's a pro wrestling show. If you're used to pro wrestling shows, that's how it's going to be. It is rated TV-14, but people are making kind of a bigger deal out of that than I think they should. TV-14 this is how bad it might get rating.
Yeah, and that's probably mainly just because of Joey Janela and Jimmy Havoc.
It's also sort of like internally policed. They've said there won't be blood on the show. They've said that the pay-per-views aren't a good example of how bad it will get because they're going to be sort of more adult-themed than the TV show will be. They do have sponsors to think about. It will be TV-14, but it's like The Simpsons, where like TV-14 is like the episode might say damn and hell a lot.
Yeah.
Or it might not. Because it's a rating to be like this. If you're watching this type of content, TV-14, if you're 14, you're probably cool for anything that's going to happen in this show.
Yeah, pretty much. And for some of our listeners who are new to the world of wrestling, because I know they do exist, we do have some, just sit back and enjoy the ride because this shit's going to be fun.
Let's start with the male singles wrestlers here. Give you kind of overview of who these people are and where they come from. The Hangman Adam Page Adam Page is 28 years old and has been wrestling for 11 years. He hails from Aaron's Creek, Virginia, and was a school teacher briefly before his career took off. Since then, Page has had success working for companies like Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. His win-loss record in AEW is 3-1-0. That's 3 wins, 1 loss, and 0 draws. His most recent bout was a loss to Chris Jericho in the first ever All Elite Wrestling Championship match at All Out. He likes doing cowboy shit.
Guy's a fucking horse, man.
And really this kind of young prospect for the company, and one that they've pushed pretty far. He's been called by the other members of the Elite, that's Kenny Omega, Cody, and the Young Bucks, the best wrestler in the Elite. And he, has more or less shown that. People have said his push has been too early or whatever. I don't really know who else you would slot in his stead if you're really trying to build the company around a new star. He's in a great position because he's a young star. He's proven that he can be big, but he's proven that he can be big in another country that very few of the viewers in America were privy to, right? So it's almost like you've gotten the opportunity to test him, but not in public.
Yeah, and as well as being in a company where foreigners are typically looked down upon and not given any type of real opportunities at all. Not to mention he has a 100% upside. He has so much potential even now. Yeah. To continue learning and continue growing. Yeah, he's getting pushed early, but you're sticking a rocket up his ass of potential and learning opportunities, because the backstage members of the staff are amazing. He has so many people that he can learn from and grow his promo skills, his wrestling skills, his athleticism. And he's got a very down-to-earth gimmick that a lot of people can get behind, which other companies, I'm not picking on WWE specifically. There's a lot of other wrestling companies that have trouble with creating down-to-earth gimmicks that keep viewers interested in them.
Yeah, he's a blue-collar cowboy-type guy, but at the same time, he's not...
I mean, he was a high school teacher. He said many times in his interviews he would leave Friday afternoon after classes, do an indie show Friday night, do an indie show Saturday night, sometimes Sunday morning, drive home, bruised, cut, and be in classroom Monday morning for his classes. And purely because he loved wrestling that much that he would sacrifice all of his free time to get his ass beat.
He's also kind of got like this like male lead in a rom-com type look to him.
Oh, yeah, God, yeah. He yeah. If there was a movie that was being played, he would be Owen Wilson.
That's perfect. That is actually perfect. Talk about Brandon Cutler.
Yeah, so Brandon Cutler is, to you and I and to many of the people watching AEW as well as wrestling in general, he's a very unknown and unestablished name.
That's true.
He began wrestling alongside the AEW executive vice presidents, Matt and Nick Jackson, when they were all teenagers, 11, 12 years old, for the early part of his career. The three of them stayed very close friends, even after Cutler decided to walk away. He walked away for 7 years, completely away from the business because he wanted to start a family. His wife, who makes much of the wrestling gear for the Young Bucks, actually all of the Elite, as well as many of the other performers in AEW, pushed him to return to the ring, and the Bucks, who signed him to AEW as a content producer and as a wrestler, earning him the name To Contract Cutler, which has brought much ridicule to him, as well as him being called the Bucks Monkey Boy and Butler and
Cabana Boy.
He's kind of, he's a little bit of an older guy, but he knows how to wrestle, and he's being ridiculed for who he knows, not what he knows. His current record in AEW is 0-1-0. He was a part of the Double or Nothing Battle Royale. Hasn't had a match since then. And he's just kind of a really nerdy guy. He's he's the D&D guy. He's the cosplay guy, which obviously he is. His wife makes costumes.
Right.
But he's the nerdy dad that you wouldn't expect to be a wrestler. And funnily enough, it was just announced on Twitter that him and Luchasaurus will be on Geek and Sundry tomorrow evening for us, hosting a D&D game that will be a custom module with custom mechanics and inside the world of AEW.
That's some deep, dark nerd shit, dude.
Yeah. Your brother's probably losing his mind right now. But that's just the kind of shit that he does. He's just a big nerd, and he's a good wrestler.
Kind of a relatable guy, too. He's got this sort of relatability to him. As somebody who has maybe been given an opportunity that's a little bit above him, but he wants to prove himself. And I like that. I think that's easy to really come to terms with in his character.
Yeah, he's the guy who just was always just happy to be hanging out with his friends and helping them out with their stuff. He never wanted a wrestling contract. He never wanted the producer deal. He was just happy being able to goof off with his friends and film them doing dumb shit. The job we all want.
Right. Looking forward to seeing where he goes. Chris Jericho. Let's talk about Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is the All Elite Wrestling World Champion and is perhaps the most famous performer on the roster, having been a success in basically every major wrestling promotion in the last 30 years.
Fun fact, his wrestling anniversary is the premiere of AEW.
That is true. I did read that. Yeah. The 29-year veteran sees AEW's success as mostly his own doing. His most notable run for American fans will likely be his work with WWE, although he also worked for ECW and WCW beforehand, where he was seen in WWE as second only to The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin during the company's late 90s heyday. He's a bit of a braggart and kind of a doofus, but he's got the record and the legacy to make basically any claim on his part plausible. He has a win-loss record of 2-0-0. That's 2 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws, with a win over Kenny Omega and Adam Page, most notably. He likes a little bit of the bubbly, as it is.
Yeah, he was the first champion and then wasn't the champion for about 12 hours.
right. When he lost the title, physically lost it.
Yeah, I probably have more history with Chris Jericho than you do. I remember his WCW runs, his wrestling debuts in WCW. I remember a lot of that. I remember when he was called the traitor for leaving WCW because he jumped ship early. He was a goofball way back then with the real long hair and the silly ponytail. But he has really revitalized himself over the years, kept himself in shape, as well as just he's done every gimmick you could possibly think of. Even, from the silly shit in WCW and WWE to the more serious stuff that he's doing now with AEW and has done also in the past. But, he was, I think, the Intercontinental Champion for New Japan for a while. Mm-hmm. He's really been all over the world, and he has the list of accolades to back it up, as well as his metal band that's somewhat popular, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to gauge. Although they did just play, I think, Hollywood Bowl the other day, Fozzy.
Okay, that's pretty dope.
Opening for Iron Maiden, I think it was, that they were playing.
Okay, that's real dope. And, he has a wildly successful podcast where he sits down with a lot of his friends in the industry and, does some interviews.
Sometimes, and he does other stuff on that shit, too. Sometimes it's him talking about aliens and shit. I don't know.
I would like to sit down and talk to him about aliens. I think it would be very fun. The best one I saw is he did a 2-part commentary track of the Bad News Bears with Kevin Smith. That was absolutely hilarious.
I don't know what there is to say about Chris Jericho that hasn't already been said. He's a legend of the industry. People have called him the greatest of all time. I think it's difficult to. I think in some ways it's very easy to make that case. In some ways it's very difficult to make that case because there hasn't really been a mania around him like there was around, I guess you could say, Flair or Hogan or Rock or Austin.
I'll say yeah, those four guys, they changed the world. I mean, Dusty did too. They really changed the world, but no one has had the longevity and the continued list of accolades like Jericho.
And
has.
no one has been a success working for more people than he has either. I mean, Rock only ever worked for one guy. You know,
Hogan was he was able to go to two companies, but he screwed himself. Flair, Flair's done the Flair thing. You can't argue that he is one of the greatest of all time. But he overstayed his welcome because, well, he got married like 7 times and lost a lot of money. But when you look at Jericho and you see he's worked all over the place, he's won just about every championship known to man. Mm-hmm. And he's continued well into his late 40s, early 50s. I can't remember exactly how old he is, but he's been doing this for 30 years and stayed at that top level the entire time. Yeah, he's definitely in the discussion for greatest of all time. He may not be the greatest of all time, but he's definitely on that top 5 list.
Well, especially if AEW turns out to be a huge success, it will be difficult to argue that he isn't like a Hogan-like figure that was able to go to a different company and sort of build it from nothing around his star power. Not his star power alone, but a lot of it is his star power. When people ask me, when lapsed fans, quote unquote, ask me, oh, hey, who's start talking about the new company, they're like, who's in it? Jericho is always the first name that I say because Jericho is the one that they're most likely to know. So.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I have a couple coworkers who watched wrestling, during the Attitude Era in the early 2000s. They remember a lot of that sort of stuff, and they've asked me, like, you're really into the wrestling thing. Who's in this, promotion that you're watching? It's like Chris Jericho, Cody Rhodes. Jericho's in it, really? I didn't know he was still wrestling. It's like, yeah, he's still kicking ass, man. It's pretty cool. It's he's that little bit there to get the conversation going, to get him into the other stars who are in the midst of being made through AEW.
Yeah. Talk to me about Shima.
I don't know much. You don't either. He's a veteran of the Japanese wrestling world. Not New Japan, though, so that's why he's a little bit of an enigma for you and I.
Yeah, he was a big guy behind Dragon Gate.
Anyways, so he's now the president of OWE. I don't know what that stands for, but okay.
Oriental Wrestling Entertainment. That's
fucking dumb. Okay, and a little racist, but whatever.
Well, I mean, it's them. It's their word. They can say it.
Fair enough. I'm not going to argue that. That's a bad road to go down. He is and was a mentor to many individuals who are now in AEW, including Matt and Nick Jackson. His win-loss record as a single is 0-1-0, and he's a coach.
Yeah.
Technically, his record is 0-2-0 because I believe.
Okay. I need to explain this thing about the win-loss records. I put the win-loss records in here from the website. I think. Some of them take into account singles win losses and tags win losses, and some of them don't, which makes sense because AEW is kind of the same way with a lot of the times when they read win loss records. So his win loss records, this is correct. It would technically though be 0-2-0, I think.
Yes,
0-1-0.
His team did lose at Double or Nothing. Okay.
And then he also lost against Kenny Omega at Fight for the Fallen.
Lost, but put on one hell of a match.
It was a great match.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Like we said, I don't know a lot about him. I was not very impressed by him during Double or Nothing with the trios match that took place.
Yeah.
The singles match at Fight for the Fallen changed my mind quite a bit, and I do look forward to seeing him more. He'll probably be one of those guys we see every once in a while because he's very busy with his promotion in, I believe, China or Taiwan, somewhere over there.
It's in Shanghai.
It's in Shanghai. Okay. So he's very busy with that. So we probably won't see him too much, but he's a good coach and a good talent to have when you need someone in there. I believe he was brought in mainly to help coach a lot of these guys because he has so much knowledge of the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we will see more from him, but I don't think he'll be there weekly on television. I think it'll be something where he kind of comes in and he does a few matches, maybe a couple weeks, and then he's kind of gone again, and that's fine. That should be the case in a wrestling show. You want to have that sort of deep roster where you don't necessarily see people every week.
And where you don't need everyone every week.
Right. Let's talk about Cody. The American Nightmare Cody is the son of the world-famous professional wrestler, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. He wrestled for years with WWE as Cody Rhodes and alongside his brother Dustin Rhodes as Stardust and Goldust, respectively. Leaving WWE after years of creative mismanagement, Cody took to the independent scene like wildfire, becoming a star in indies all over the world, as well as bigger companies such as Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, before signing with AEW as an EVP. His win-loss record is 2-0-1, with wins over Shawn Spears and Dustin Rhodes. He likes dogs, The Legend of Zelda, and fine tailored suits, as well as cigars.
He does have his own cigar company, yes.
Cody's a big star, but kind of a big star in the wrestling world. Not really somebody who's had the opportunity to break out into the mainstream in a big way. For
the most part, he's a little bit of a local celebrity, but that was more from when he was in high school.
Yeah.
Not so much of the pro wrestling stuff. He was in the state championships when he was in high school. Mm-hmm. Also when I was in high school, a long time ago. But yeah, he's real big in the wrestling world, not so big outside of that. He's had a couple of guest spots on Arrow as a recurring villain. I've heard rumors that he's coming back for the final season, but nothing has been confirmed, naturally. But, he was the guy who was expected to leave WWE and fail.
Sure. It's important to note in WWE, I list creative mismanagement here. Cody Rhodes was never anything more than a mid-carder in WWE.
And then treated essentially as a joke for much of his later career.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he left the company, everyone expected him, the wrestling community, wrestling journalists, other promotions, expected him to fail.
Sure. After you leave, if you've been at WWE for a while and you leave WWE, you kind of get this one tour where you can draw decent houses because of who you used to be or whatever, and people want to see what you can do on the indies, and you kind of get that, and lots of people get that, and then that's the last time you hear about them.
Until they go back to WWE.
Right.
Yeah.
Cody's one of the few who managed to springboard out of it, and it's very difficult to do. Even for very talented pro wrestlers, it takes them a long time.
Mm-hmm. And he did it essentially in the span of about 1.5 years, 2 years, where he was he had a run as the Ring of Honor world champion. He was the North American champion for New Japan.
Yeah.
For they decided to leave and start AEW. He's one of my favorite wrestlers. He's become that in the past few years just because he's very so talented. I was also a very big fan of his dad. I loved his dad so much. But he's humble. Mm-hmm. He's a person that you could walk to up on the street and have a conversation with. He's not that, okay, he is kind of that arrogant guy, but it's a character. And, if you have seen him on Twitter, he's always about giving back to the wrestling community, doing what he can for the wrestling community. Mm-hmm. He posted a long letter the other day on Instagram about his thoughts on the premiere of AEW, and
yeah, we're gonna read it on the Real Show.
Yeah, and just to me, that was a very heartwarming thing because of how just down to earth and just he cares so much about this industry because his dad helped it so much, and he's lived it, breathed it, bled it his entire life.
Yeah, out of the 4 EVPs, he's kind of been positioned as the figurehead for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's the best speaker out of the 4 of them. The second reason being that his name still has this reverement to it from everybody.
Not that he can say his last name, but yes.
He can. According to him, he can. He just doesn't.
He couldn't for a very long time.
Sure. But besides that, so you're going to see a lot of Cody, especially in the first episode, as we're going to talk about. But you're going to see a lot of Cody. He's kind of
someone you will see consistently for the life of this company.
Yeah, Tony Khan, who we talked about, has made it very clear that he doesn't really want to be an on-screen character. And I suspect that will stay that way, mostly because I suspect that he knows that he's not an actor. He can be creative in other ways without being an actor. And
just judging about how embarrassed he was after All Out when they dragged him out.
So he's not like, or you watch him in stand-ups after the pay-per-views or whatever. He can speak to people fine, but not in a way that is visually or audibly arresting in the way that you would want a speaker to be. He's not that. Cody is, so he has Cody do that a lot of the time.
Yeah, Tony's kind of the quiet guy, quiet nerdy guy at a party.
Yeah. Who secretly owns everybody in the room.
Yes.
Darby Alan. I want to talk about Darby Alan. Darby Alan is you talk about Darby Alan.
No, you do Darby. I'll do Dustin.
Okay. Darby Alan is a bit of an enigma, honestly. The former skateboarder started wrestling in 2015. His sullen demeanor and reckless offense have become some of his trademarks alongside his half-painted skeleton face that he does, a tribute to his uncle who died in a drunk driving accident when Darby was young. Since then, he has, quote, felt like he is half dead inside, end quote. He has a win-loss record of 0 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw, having taken Cody to a time limit draw at Fyter Fest. He doesn't seem to like much of anything at all.
Yeah, really not his spine.
Yeah.
He's taken 2 really, really nasty bumps, one at Fyter Fest, one at
All Out.
At All Out. That was, to be honest, quite insane, and that's not something you should do to your spine.
He's reckless, man.
Especially if you like walking.
And I can see he's kind of a darker character. It doesn't appeal to me personally, but I can see and quite frankly know that it appeals to a lot of wrestling fans at home. I think he's got a bright future if he can manage to make it through without completely destroying his body.
I'm not really a fan of his character. I'm very impressed with his in-ring ability, and he has impressed me very much with his in-ring ability. The character, that's whatever to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen 100 of them.
Sure.
He has dumb ring gear. The paint's silly. But when you get him in the ring and that engine started, this kid's nuts, and he's got the athleticism to back it up.
Yeah, you really believe in him, too. He's a bit of a smaller stature figure as well, which kind of limits who he can work with in his style, believably, to some extent. But I think he's really talented in the ring, and I think he's going to continue to show that. And I think that character over time will mold into something that seems a little less hackneyed and a little more sort of in universe than it has seemed in the past, where there have been times where he's got a promo and it's been like, all right, dude, being a little dramatic here.
he just he's one of the young guys who he needs some polish. That's really all that's really standing between him and being a really big star in this industry. Is he just a little bit of polish. Don't try to paralyze yourself, but you do you.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And I think he has the potential and if he can not paralyze himself, he can go pretty far.
Tell me about Dustin Rhodes.
Yeah. So Dustin Rhodes is the older half brother of Cody Rhodes, the son of the American Dream, Dusty. He's wrestled all over America as the Natural. He's known to most as Goldust, who he played in WWE. He was in WCW for a very long time with Dusty in the beginning. I can't remember for the life of me the character he played in WCW. It was so long ago.
I believe for some of that he was the Natural.
Probably. I know the Goldust was Vince's idea. And for many, Goldust was very controversial and still remains to be controversial because of he was this very androgynous,
kind of exotico type character, right?
Yeah, you never really knew what was going to happen when Goldust was in the picture. I know there was a good portion of my childhood when Goldust was around where my mom would say, hey, you can't watch this because and just being out when you're 7-8 years old, it's not something you really needed to see. And that was true of a lot of the Attitude Era of WWE. He has been wrestling for the better part of 30 years, most of actually entirely of my life. His win-loss record as a single is 0-1-0. And he does like the face paint quite a bit. His AEW look is very much modeled after Darth Maul. He has admitted this.
Yeah.
If you want some really funny shit, follow him on Twitter where he's trying to play video games again as, in his words, the old man, and tags his tweets as old man plays video games.
Is he playing old games or new games?
New games. He's playing like shit on the Switch.
Oh, so like he doesn't. That's always been interesting to me. Like, how would somebody who like didn't have to learn twin sticks as they came around, like now has to?
Like, yeah, that it's so funny. And the funniest part of all of this is you like right when he got a Switch. Is because it was like right after like Fight for the Fallen or Double or Nothing, one of those two, where he hung out with Cody the entire weekend, and you can tell Cody was like, dude, you got to play this new Zelda game. I'm telling you, you got to play it. But yeah, there was a week or two ago, he was on Twitter and at GameStop, and he was like, which of these games should I buy? I'm asking you guys.
That's worth it alone, man. Just watching an older person get into a new hobby is always really interesting. How
it really is. I grew up a lot with Dustin. He to me is very much he's in the end stages of his career. He knows this. He's here in AEW as a talent for a little while, and he's going to transition to be coaching.
But he still had an awesome match with Cody at Double or Nothing.
Absolutely. And if he's the kind of one of the guys who, if you keep him around just wrestling every once in a while, he can put on a badass match. But it's the week in, week out kind of thing where you're going to really run him down where it's not going to work well. If you put him behind the mic, you got a perfect character right there. And cause, I mean, he grew up with Dusty, who's going to shit talk better besides MJF.
Jimmy Havoc. I want to talk about Jimmy Havoc. The King of Goths is from Kent, England. Prior to AEW, he was a star of the British Underground, known for his sort of gothic persona and his wild death matches. He is often seen brandishing a staple gun. His win-loss record is 1-3-0, and he likes pain.
Quite a bit of pain.
This win-loss record is affected by. It's so weird. I'll take it as it is, but
yeah.
There isn't much to say about Jimmy Havoc.
He's got really cool entrance music. I really like it.
He does. He has
shirts. His shirts have been meh, but yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's not someone I really expected to like.
Right.
When they announced him, I was like, oh, cool, deathmatch guy.
Yeah. Weird gothy deathmatch guy from England.
But man, dude, he's crazy. The thing that sticks in my mind the most is when Double or Nothing was going on. He was in the Battle Royale, and he entered. My girlfriend's sitting on the couch and looks at me. He's like, does he have a fucking staple gun? How is that legal? I was like, it's Battle Royale. There's no rules. And yes, that is a staple gun. Oh, okay. He just stapled that cigarette to the other guy's head. Okay, that's fine.
You just stapled Tommy Dreamer's nuts. The the most wildest thing that he's done, I think, is when who was it? Joey Janela put all those thumbtacks in his mouth and then kicked him in the mouth.
Yeah, that was
a lot
it's
of
a good
stuff
thing
like
we
that.
were watching that match in the arena, because man, that would have been hard to watch at home. It was a little cringy. I like Jimmy Havoc. He's not going to be one of these guys who's going to be the top of the card, but man, he'll be awesome in the middle of the card and just doing crazy ass matches.
Yeah.
One of the funny things from the Road to video series on YouTube is there was a thing on the whiteboard that says, "Talk to Havoc about TNT's standards and practices," because they had to specifically tell him, "Dude, you can't carry a fucking staple gun on TV," which is, ironic with the next guy we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Joey Janela.
Okay.
Sometimes the road less traveled is less traveled for a reason, such as the story of the bad boy Joey Janela. The 30-year-old native of Hazlitt Township, New Jersey, is perhaps best known for taking some of the wildest hits in the history of professional wrestling. This is a part of his life that he tries hard to forget, but old habits die hard, and some days it seems like Deathmatch Guy is a shackle that will follow him forever, even if he has ceased falling from roofs into truck beds full of barbed wires and light tubes.
I mean, there's a reason for that, though.
He has a win-loss record of 0-4-0, and he likes being a bad, bad boy. The best... That's sort of... his thing behind him is that he's this, kind of trash towny type character, I guess. And he's got this sort of deathmatch guy thing that hangs over him. Now, it's something he's leaned into a little bit on the roster when it's been convenient for him to do so, when it got him a match with Jon Moxley and whatnot. But so far, as a result, his win-loss record has been pretty bad, and he's been the first to really mention it. So where he goes from here is questionable because he hasn't won a lot of matches. I'm excited to see him get a chance on a big stage because I think he's really good at being the character that he is on screen, and so that excites me about him, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, I can agree with that, and he's never gonna get out of the deathmatch guy gimmick and really that persona, because, well, there's a documentary on YouTube that will explain it all. To be honest, he got famous as being the deathmatch guy and doing just batshit crazy stunts. A couple of them he really should not have walked away from alive because they were so insane. I think he doesn't have a feeling in a couple of his fingers because of one of those
and at some point,
with some light tubes.
At some point when you've done that and you're still in the same career, trying to get away from it or trying to avoid it is almost like, well, then why did I fucking do it in the first place? You know what I mean? Like, at least for those that will matter to, live off of that, and then beyond that, try to be impressive in the ring in other ways. You know what I mean? So.
Pretty much, and he's doing it. And the other part about him trying to get away from the deathmatch guy thing is, well, his self-promoted event every year, Joey Janela's Spring Break. He did a massive death match at the first one that was insane.
Sure.
So you're not really going to get away from that. I enjoy Janela. I understand why a lot of people don't, but it's going to be a little difficult for him to be the death match guy in a TV seemingly censored area.
Well, and the stuff that he's done deathmatch wise in AEW has been this sort of more silly version of the death match, right? Where the Cracker Barrel comes out and the bumps are onto ladders and shit, right? And it's not blood and guts everywhere and big prop moments and sort of gimmicked weed whackers and shit like that, right? Like, that's just not really what they're doing now. It's a lot of sort of more fun, definitely more violent, but more sort of like stunty
more things with barbed wire and thumbtacks, which it looks really bad, but it's really not terrible for the performer there.
Right. It looks terrible. It probably feels terrible, but it's going to heal up that night, you know?
Yeah.
And
it's not like a gruesome thing where someone's going to be squirting blood all over the place. It's
right.
Oh, you got scraped up, you're fine.
Yeah.
So the other kind of deathmatch guy, and who will be more known to a lot of other people by his other name, Jon Moxley. Known to most by his WWE stage name of Dean Ambrose. Second only to Jericho, probably, in terms of fame worldwide.
Yeah, I would say so.
He debuted as a surprise as Double or Nothing went off the air. Many people expected that to happen, but it was still very much a surprise when it did.
Sure.
He had left WWE about 6 weeks earlier, and it was the talk of the town of where's Moxley going to go? What's he going to do? The best part of that is in the midst of him leaving, he stuck it to Vince and told Vince he was filming a movie when he was actually filming his promo videos. As he arrived in AEW with a ton of buzz and a real massive chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
It was Moxley's signing, perhaps even more than Jericho's, that really helped legitimize AEW as a possible contender for WWE. He has a win-loss record of 1-0-0. He was slated for a match at All Out. Had to pull out about a week before at the last minute from a nasty case of MRSA.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what that is, don't look it up. It's a blood infection, and you will be scarred for life if you do look it up. He's a guy who he really likes chaos. He really likes violence. Seeing his one match in AEW and seeing him off of the shackles of WWE, man, my entire opinion of him changed quickly.
He's an unbelievable promo too, and him getting the finally chance to the chance to be set free. A lot of these guys, you'll see the word creatively mismanaged brought up a lot here, because a lot of these guys that are ex-WWE guys left because it wasn't doing it for them. It wasn't a place where they could thrive, and pro wrestling for so long has been sort of one man's ideas, and if you didn't get along with that one man's ideas, then you weren't going to get along. Dean Ambrose is perhaps the biggest example of that, and the biggest example of someone who, man, the difference between Jon Moxley and Dean Ambrose, who worked for WWE, is almost night and day, despite the fact that they're the same person, even just a few weeks removed from one another. And that's crazy and wild to see, and kind of the best thing about AEW is that it's giving these people a chance to work with somebody who not only actually likes pro wrestling, but comes at it with a younger perspective, comes at it with a more knowledgeable perspective of how television is around him, and is going to allow them to talk about their character and talk about pro wrestling in a way that isn't informed by 70 years of baggage from being in this business and not really doing anything else. So he's in a good place, and hopefully this MRSA condition will be cleared up by TV, and we'll see so much from him. Finally.
Yeah. We do know he will be on the first episode of TV, no matter what. He will not be wrestling that night. We just know he will be probably making one hell of a promo.
He's also, out of a lot of these guys, probably one of the in the best shape of probably any of these guys. Maybe Pac's in a different place,
Yeah,
but
that doesn't fucking count. He's a monster. No one should be 5'4" and shredded like that. That's just not human.
Jon Moxley's going to be a star for this company for, I think, as long as he's there. He's just one of these guys. You see him and he walks in the frame and you're like, oh my God, there's that guy, So no worries from him. I think as soon as he gets his health under control, which hopefully he is happening now, he's going to be a big deal. Kenny Omega, 35-year-old Winnipeg native Kenny Omega, is widely considered one of the best wrestlers in the world, thanks to a career that has been fought all over the world, but really exploded in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Known as a, quote, best bout machine, end quote, Kenny's strange personality is as much a hallmark of his career as his brutal V-trigger running knee. Despite his major successes in the industry, Omega hasn't had the best of luck in AEW. His win-loss record is 2-0, with 2 high-profile losses to Chris Jericho and Pac, respectively. He likes video games and sort of otaku culture and things of that nature.
He's a big fucking weeb, guys.
And you can tell it in his character. His character's got this sort of anime nature to it.
Yeah, he is like, that's the funny thing of the Elite. All 4 of those guys are giant nerds. Cody's a big video game nerd. Kenny is a big video game nerd. Most of his ring gear is anime themed. His finishing move is the other name of Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII, the one-winged angel. He's just a gigantic nerd. For a long time, he when he was getting started in New Japan, he moved to Japan. He became a Japanese citizen because that was what he wanted to do. He loved that company. He loved the culture. He loved everything so much. He's massively involved with the Joshi wrestling, which is becoming a part of AEW. He is the one spearheading that and going to bat for those women that they are and it's true, they are very talented in a different style of wrestling that people don't see and don't understand.
Yeah.
He's gone on record saying that that's what brought him back into wrestling when he was on his way out, because he was disillusioned by it. Mm-hmm. Honestly, one of the best of the best people still working in the world. He's in the top 5 list. He's really, he's a phenomenal wrestler. I'm not really sure where Kenny has to go from here, because he's kind of done it all. He's become the star of a company.
What's interesting about him is he's kind of done it all for some people and is a complete unknown for others.
Yeah, that's very true. It really is. To hardcore, like really hardcore wrestling fans, he's one of the top 5 in the world. Mm-hmm. To casual wrestling fans, they're like, who the fuck's that guy?
Right.
You know, my dad has become a big fan of Kenny Omega from when he saw some of the first New Japan shows that were that took place in America. Watching AEW, he's become a big fan of Kenny Omega. So, like, my dad's been watching wrestling for fucking 40 years now, and he like really loves Kenny Omega because he has the older style.
Yeah.
The old hard, stiff style, as well as the new, let's do some crazy, flippy shit style that is more appealing to, like, modern wrestling fans. And, you and I, we're always big into that. We're big lucha guys.
Right.
So, and he's got the range for his promos. He can go from the soft-spoken guy talking about Joshi wrestling to a seemingly coked out crazy person talking about getting the jet from Top Gun. Mm-hmm. You never know what you're going to get when Kenny has a microphone in his hand.
Yeah, there's not more that I can say that you haven't said already with him. It's interesting that he comes in with this legend for some and is brand new to others. I feel like a lot of guys are in that position. The only person who's really not in that position maybe is Chris Jericho. And so that's kind of fascinating, and it's interesting to see how they're going to deal with that now. They brought him in, sort of introduced him as, he's Kenny Omega, he's the best wrestler in the world, and then they've had him lose 2 singles matches. The 2 wins on his record are tags. With the Young Bucks, who have won basically every match they've had so far. So,
to some of our anger, yeah, that is true. But when you really look at his 2 losses, they are to Jericho, one of the best in the world,
right?
Understandable and great match. Pac, that loss was interesting. That was a very it was what no one expected out of that match, and
he lost in a way that I think doesn't hurt him that bad. He got caught in a submission and he passed out. Yeah. That's how it is, you know.
And the way that the stories are going right now is it's broken him.
Yeah,
mentally, the loss to Pac has just snapped Kenny, and it's a very interesting way they're taking his character, is that he is a little bit unhinged now.
But one thing I really like about AEW is that they were willing to do that to someone like Kenny Omega, which shows that they have sort of a different philosophy about submissions, which is great because WWE's always had this thing about submissions where if you tap out, you're a fucking pussy, right? And
as well as you never see anyone actually tap out from a submission. They always make it to the ropes.
Right. I look forward to hopefully AEW embracing that. Even if you're the best, if you get caught and somebody chokes you out, then that's it. That's just something that can happen in the match. That's a risk that you take, right? And even the best fighters in the world can get hit with that and go down. So I'm looking forward to that. Talk briefly about Kip Sabian. Kip Sabian is on the roster. He's a British guy. He's 27. He's from Great Yarmouth, England. His win-loss record is 1-0. He likes dressing like a dick and calling himself super bad.
He's got a hot girlfriend, man.
He's got a hot girlfriend. He's fine. He hasn't really had a chance to show what character he has a lot. To say he hasn't been given the time to do that, I think is false. He has. But he's also, out of everybody on the roster, one of the guys who isn't coming in with as much experience as other guys have. And hopefully he'll get there. But at the moment, he's been kind of a low-light performer for the company.
Which is, it's perfectly fine. I mean, you need mid-card guys, and Kip has the potential to go a long way if he chooses to. If he doesn't, he seems perfectly willing and perfectly happy being a mid-card guy. I think he's got a lot of room to grow, both on a promo and in the ring. We've seen a couple matches for him where it's definitely him slowing things down, which is not really preferable. Because that's what a lot of people don't understand is when you go slow in wrestling, that's when your flaws really stand out. The faster you go, the more, when you're going fast, people don't see every little step that you're taking. It all blends together. And when you're going very slow and methodical, if you pull a punch, I see that you hit that guy with a tap, not a iron punch, or I see that you slapped his leg to make the sound, not kicking him, that kind of a thing. So it's like, it's a good and a bad thing. There's a lot of guys who can take that slow, methodical style and make it work. Kip right now is not one of those guys and needs to really work on it if that's the way he's going to go with it.
Yeah, his style is really weird because it's very slow, but then he throws in aerial moves. And it doesn't feel good to watch his matches, unfortunately. And I think he's going to get there. He's just, like I said, he's, compared to these other guys, pretty inexperienced for this roster. So,
yeah. But on the flip side of that, you have someone like our next guy, MJF, who has been in the industry for 3 years and is better than a lot of people who have been in the industry for 30 years.
Let me read the thing. We can talk about him.
Yeah.
Better than you, and you know it, Maxwell Jacob Friedman is the youngest and fastest rising star in professional wrestling today. At just 23 years of age, he has already cemented himself as one of the smartest bad guys in the game. There is perhaps no wrestler on this or any roster with the upside that MJF has. He has collected championships all over the United States, but the one accolade he treasures the most is being the best friend of the one and only Cody. The two have a mentor/protege thing going on, and Max is on his best behavior when Cody is around, but on his own, MJF is perhaps the greatest example of bad behavior. A born rich, cocky son of a bitch from New York. His win-loss record is 1-2-0, and he likes making fun of poor people.
Really everyone, not just poor people. It feels lately like, yeah, poor people are kind of his target, but it's everyone.
Poor people, fat people, disabled people, nerds, anybody.
Yeah, just anyone. The funny thing right now is that people are realizing that they can threaten him by saying, "Oh, look, Cody's coming around the corner." Yeah, man, this is a kid who is like if he's talented in the ring, not quite as talented as some of the other guys. Mm-hmm. Where his strength is he can run his mouth and roll a promo on someone, and it is like you sat down and wrote it for 16 hours. As it just comes off of he just rolls it off the cuff. So
he can do
easily.
whole interviews in this character. He's done it more than once. He's got that thing that The Rock had.
Yeah.
And people have said he's like Miz. I don't think he's like Miz, because Miz's stuff comes off as him playing a character.
Yeah.
Is what it feels like. The Rock felt like The Rock, and if you bumped into The Rock on the street, that's what he would be like. That's what it felt like when you watched him. MJF feels like that, and I think he has the possibility that if he's put in a position, he's going to be someone that people tune in for, because they're just like, listen to this guy.
Yeah. What the
talk
fuck's he going to
shit.
say next? Yeah,
right.
The Rock, even to this day, The Rock is you'll never bump into The Rock on the street now, but say you did. Sure. It would not surprise me if he started talking about himself in the third person and called me a candy ass. Right. And I'd be perfectly fine with it. MJF's the same way. I was during StarCast. I saw him come in. He was shit-talking everyone he walked past. He had a meet and greet that was like $200 because it had to be the most expensive thing there. He was chilling in the room. No one was at his table because he didn't want anyone at his table. As I was walking by, just, inspecting the room, he's like, "Hey, fucking nerd in the glasses, get the fuck out of my line of sight." And it's like, yeah, okay.
He at the hotel lobby at StarCast, the only interaction I had with MJF was there was that they had one of those things where you hit the thing and it goes up, hits the bell, right? One of those carnival games. And if you hit the bell, you got a free t-shirt. Nobody was hitting it all afternoon. You'd hear plank, no ding, plank, no ding. Suddenly, I heard plank, ding, and then "That's why I'm better than you," as MJF took the shirt that they gave him, the free shirt that they gave him, and tore it in half in front of everybody so that no one could have it.
Yeah. Why should someone else get his free shirt? I love this guy. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Just because he can shit talk so well, and he lives the character 100%. His interactions on Twitter are amazing. He has shit-talked people so bad that he's been receiving death threats for, I think, probably the past 3 weeks solid now.
Dude, forever. And that dude always.
And a lot of these people do not understand where they're, like, telling him, "I'll fucking kill you," that he's then screenshotting their messages, posting them on Twitter, and then responding to them. And you have so many people that are trying to shit-talk him on Twitter, and it's like, you're not going to do better than him. And he's going to make fun of you even worse now, and he does, and it's awesome, people. It's just great, man. MJF and Hangman are the two guys who will run this company one day.
I don't even think it's going to be that long, honestly.
I don't either, but I mean, like, when you look back and you see AEW, and say in 15 years we find out it's a failure, blah blah blah. Yeah. It's not going to be because of MJF and Hangman. You're going
that's your top babyface and your top heel right there.
Yeah, 100%.
I'll talk briefly about Michael Nakazawa so you can talk about Pac. Michael Nakazawa is a weird Japanese guy who likes to put his underwear in people's mouths.
He's Kenny's friend.
He's a friend of Kenny. He has a win-loss record of 0-1-0, which that one that he lost to was a non-wrestler, by the way. And he likes baby oil.
He became a wrestler to impress a girl.
He's super. He's funny. He's
super
silly,
awkward, but he's a real genuine, humble guy. And one of the funniest things I remember is they were doing like TV guide photos for the announcement of AEW, and he was there for whatever reason. And he's in the middle of these photos with just the biggest shit-eating grin because he's just so happy that this is happening and to be included as just one of the guys. And, you know, we joked for a while there that we were going to make T-shirts with that face on the back of it because it was a little terrifying.
He's so funny because he's one of those guys where, like, realistically, he has no right to be here, but he is.
Yeah.
You know, so
100%, man.
And the matches that I've seen him put on, you know, it hasn't been a clinic. It hasn't been anything like that, but it's been entertaining, you know. It's been fun
shit.
and I've laughed when he's been on, you know, so.
Same. It's real good for giving Jim Cornette a heart attack.
A noble cause, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell us about Pac.
Yeah, so for the wrestling fans in the room, Pac will be known to many people as the man that gravity forgot from NXT and WWE, Adrian Neville, or for much of his career, just Neville, because WWE doesn't like two names.
It's weird.
He left WWE after a creative mismanagement. He basically sat out a lot of his contract after WrestleMania 1 year because he felt slighted by being on the pre-show, as he should have been. He was completely justified in that. He rebranded himself on the Indies as the Bastard Pac. His original name from the Indies was Pac, and has been a major success throughout Europe and the Far East. He has was set to face Hangman Page at Double or Nothing. That match was canceled due to some creative, I'm just going to call it fuckery. They then had that match on the indie show, and it was posted live on YouTube for all the AEW fans to watch so that they could see the match.
Yeah.
Pac surprised a lot of us by returning at All Out to face Kenny Omega after Moxley had to pull out of the match due to the MRSA. Won that match against Kenny Omega due to a very surprising submission finish. It seems as though the Bastard's next target may be the Hangman once again, and I'm looking forward to it. A lot of the fun leading up to the original match was the Bastard fucking with Hangman hardcore, and it was some funny things. His win-loss record in AEW is 1-0-0, and he really just likes to hurt people. There's no other way of saying it.
1-0. His win was over Kenny Omega in that submission finish. And that's sort of the only thing he's had. He's the most recent addition to the roster officially that we've had. He was on and then he was off and now he's back again. From a story perspective, that's really all that's going on with him. It does look like he's chasing the Hangman. He did say he's back in AEW to take on the Hangman at a stand-ups after All Out. So.
Well, he lost that silly championship, so there's no fuckery to be had.
Yeah, that looks like that's where he's headed now. Sammy Guevara is Sammy Guevara is 26 years old. I have this written here that he's 6 years old.
Because he looks 6 years old.
He kind of looks 6 years old. Maybe that's where I got it. Sammy Guevara is 26 years old and has been wrestling for 6 years. In that time, he has massively improved, becoming one of the most exciting in-ring performers in the world. He's often discounted for his boyish good looks and irritating personality. He's dangerous in the ring, even if his win-loss record so far doesn't reflect that. His win-loss record is 1-1-0, and he likes panda bears.
Yeah, really, but not just panda bears, because panda bears are cool.
Yeah.
Like really, really obnoxiously cutesy cartoon panda bears.
Yeah. He's a weird aesthetic, man. But I'm looking forward to seeing him getting the opportunity to do more and more in AEW. We're of course familiar with him initially from Lucha Underground, but even that
it's worlds apart from when we first saw him.
Sure.
He has grown so much as his talent has reflected in AEW. Mm-hmm. When we came into Double or Nothing, we weren't too super impressed from what we saw in Lucha Underground, but there was a couple years difference between that and AEW.
Sure.
His first match in AEW wasn't really great. We then found out that, we contribute that to Kip Sabian not being too great.
Right.
There's a lot of upsides to Sammy Guevara. He's going to be very popular with any of the women audience of AEW because he's a very good looking guy. He's not the guy you would expect to really be a wrestler, but
Right.
he's very, very talented, very charismatic.
Yeah, Justin Bieber looking motherfucker, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But that's one reason I don't like him. But that's a good reason to be a heel. Because
Right.
I'm better looking than you. Fuck you. That's all you need.
Is, so.
I see a lot of upside for him. I see him being champion one day, as long as he just sticks with it. The match he has coming up on the premiere versus Cody, the first match of AEW Dynamite. He also has the honor of being the first singles match of AEW period with his match against Kip Sabian.
So they really must think a lot of him that they've now put him in this position twice to be the first thing that people see, right?
Yeah,
So
100%, man. I mean, that's a hell of an honor to have that twice.
yeah.
So he's got a lot of upside. He's got a long way to go for sure, but he can pull it out, and he's got the room and the talent to grow and be a champion one day, even if I can't fucking stand him.
You want to do Shawn Spears?
Sure. So Shawn Spears will be known to many people as the Perfect 10 Ty Dillinger, as he was known in WWE. He was, until very recently, a very close friend of Cody, who, like so many others, left his dream job at WWE due to just being lost in the shuffle and never having a good gimmick and never really getting a push. He is now managed by the legendary Tully Blanchard and recently lost to Cody in a very heated match stemming from an unwarranted attack by Spears after Cody referred to him as a good hand. That was at Fyter Fest. The incident in question was a very nasty chair shot that turned uglier than anyone anticipated. And for anyone confused about the good hand comment, that's a very, very bad insult in the wrestling world. That is not something you ever want to hear, is being called a good hand. That means you're the mediocre guy who can get by in a passable match. It's the wrestler's way of saying that guy's a jobber. He'll never do anything in this industry.
Well, it's more about what somebody's not saying when they say you're a good hand.
Yeah.
Because when they're saying you're a good hand, they're not saying you're a star.
They're not saying you're a star. They're not saying you're a good talent or a great talent. Or
they're saying you're good.
Passable.
You're good there. You're filler. You're good. You're good to fill until my match, which is going to happen later in the night.
Pretty much. His win-loss record is 1-2-0, and yeah, for some reason he likes these colored contacts. The deal, I don't get it, because that seems to me like it'd be real hard to wrestle in.
Hey, it works for Ray, I guess.
I guess, but Ray kind of popped off. It was like a damn jumping bean, so it never really. He didn't take too many hits to the head.
Right.
Yeah, kind of fun story about Shawn Spears is he left his honeymoon in Hawaii with the very beautiful Peyton Royce, flew to Chicago, wrestled a match, got on a plane, flew back to Hawaii to continue his honeymoon.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about Shawn Spears. I've gone on record before as saying he's always struck me as more of a look than a character. I'm excited to see him maybe develop more of that. I think putting him with Tully is a good idea if they continue that. I hope that they will.
I don't see any indications or any reasons that they won't be continuing that.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's a perfect fit. I really feel like he's a lot more talented than we've ever really seen. I feel like he really got held back a lot in the shuffle by WWE, and he was never really given the chance to grow. And now he has that chance. So I'm very curious to see if he can put all of those pieces together and become a superstar and not a good hand.
Sure. Last man on the singles roster is Sonny Kiss, Sonny Kiss is 25 years old and hails from Jersey City, New Jersey. Bringing the Exotico style back to American pro wrestling, Sonny has been a popular attraction all over the United States. He has a win-loss record of 1-0-0, and he likes being a role model for people who just want to be themselves. This sort of...
Exotico is a hard thing to explain.
Exotico is a hard thing to explain, especially in this current culture where it's difficult to know if something is a description or a slur. And I really want to tread carefully here because I don't want to be accused of saying the one I don't want to say. You know what I mean?
He's a very exotic and very flamboyant wrestler. He
Correct.
likes to flourish and show those flourishes in his wrestling style and in his moveset. Mm-hmm. He had a very cool entrance at Fight for the Fallen with some of the Jacksonville Jaguars cheerleaders. It was honestly phenomenal.
That supposedly he choreographed too.
Yeah, he choreographed it 100% and told the cheerleaders, "This is what we're gonna do." Mm-hmm. You and I are familiar with him from Lucha Underground. He was Exolicious on that show. Had a very good run on Lucha Underground until that mystery, weird, forgotten, that never happened 5th season, 4th season, whichever.
4th season, yeah.
Whatever. It doesn't count. It doesn't exist. There was only 3 seasons of that show.
Yeah, and they were all great.
They were wonderful. He's different. He's not what you would expect. Like I said, he's very flamboyant, very out there, and the thing to pay attention to is the flourishes that he does with his moveset, because they they're really cool in how he does them and how he expresses himself. Yeah,
he's a great wrestler, super athletic. This sort of femininity to him that is just a joy to watch in his moveset. And I think he's going to be a polarizing figure for homophobes mostly. I think everybody else is going to be into what he's doing because he's great and great speaks for great at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, pretty much one of many pressing points for some people who need to expand their horizons a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's America for you though.
Yeah,
that's why there aren't a lot of characters like Sonny Kiss, whereas if you go down to Mexico there's a lot. So
it is pretty much, yeah.
It is here.
I was exposed to that when I started watching Lucha with you, and I was surprised at first, and then I grew to love it. And
because it's not something you think about in pro wrestling if you're only exposed to American pro wrestling. Like You're like, oh, Goldust or whoever, but the idea that there's a bunch of people who act like that is not something that you know when you're in an industry that's been run by a single man's tastes for the last 20 years, right? So,
who likes big beefy boys?
Tough guys. Let's talk about the tag division. It's important to talk about the tag division because the Young Bucks have stated that their goal is to have the best tag division in the world, which wouldn't take much because Vince McMahon doesn't like tags very much. But
it's a real low bar.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you look at the roster of the tag teams that they've put together, and yeah, they already have the best tag team roster. It's absolutely stacked.
SCU is the tag team, the trio's tag team of Frankie Kazarian, Scorpio Sky, and Christopher Daniels. All three of them at least 10-year veterans, some of them closer to 20, 25 years. And
Christopher Daniels has been in the industry a very, very long time and has self-admitted that, I'm not going to be doing this much longer. He has... his role in AEW is as one of the lead trainers. Yeah.
He's also, Christopher Daniels is also their talent relations guy for the company.
Which is hilarious.
Their thing is that they're three guys from Southern California and they cannot stand that they have to go other places to wrestle because they love Southern California so much.
Yeah, they don't understand why they can't just stay in Southern California and do all the shows there.
You'll often hear them come out and bemoan whatever city they're in, saying it's the worst town they've ever been in, and they just can't wait to get back to Southern California. They're good wrestlers, even if their matches are sort of rarely like, oh my God, did you see that match? They are very entertaining. They are very good. They're good foils for sort of other teams, and they've got this mania behind them in the crowd. Man, people just love the SCU, right? And
they do get some of the absolute loudest chants in the arena. I mean, like when they came out in Chicago while we were there. I mean, like it was close to knocking the roof off the place of how loud the crowd was and how into it they were for that their promo at the beginning of the match. It was some cool shit to see.
Yeah, I think people are going to dig on them.
I do. Yeah, I agree as well. Like they're kind of a little bit in the New Day role where they have the third guy and they just rotate through.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's a good way to build a tag team or just a team in general. Mm-hmm. It keeps everybody fresh. You're not relying on the same two guys all the time. You can, as well as it allows you to style change and surprise people.
Yeah.
Not so much with SCU because they all kind of wrestle the same style, but typically you do have different styles when you have a trio that performs as a tag team. The good foil for them is the next team that we have is Angelico and Jack Evans from AAA is where a lot of people would see them.
They've worked all over though, man.
All over the world, literally.
Angelico from Australia, Jack Evans from
South Africa.
Oh, he is from South Africa. My bad.
Yeah.
Jack Evans is from Canada,
yep.
I believe.
They are the two kind of polar opposites. Angelico is a very, very tall, lanky guy. Jack Evans is a short little spark plug who has a motor mouth and will shit talk and during the entire match while he is flipping around on you. Some of the funniest things I've ever seen is Jack Evans running his mouth during Lucha Underground.
Mm-hmm. They are one of only two tag teams on this list that you won't see in the tag team tournament that's coming up.
Very sad
around
to say,
television.
but
the reasoning being that they haven't won any matches. Their win-loss record is 0-3-0. So
yeah, and that's fair. The funny to me, even though they haven't really won a match, they are two of the most impressive talents because it doesn't matter if they're losing a match; they are impressing everyone in the arena with their athleticism, their move sets.
Yeah, there's no question that they're awesome.
They are, awesome. It's just two really great guys who are they have that telepathic link at times of how long they've been as a tag team. There's not really much more I can say about it. It's just, if you see a Angelico and Jack Evans match, don't blink.
The Young Bucks for a long time have been considered the best wrestling tag team in the world. It's made up of Executive Vice President Matt Jackson and Executive Vice President Nick Jackson, two real-life brothers, strong Christian value family men who are, as much responsible for this company being what it is as anybody. And just unbelievable in-ring performers in this sort of indie lucha hybrid style that they kind of brought to tag team wrestling in a big way. A lot of it's sort of based on the Hardys and things, tag teams like that. But they are perhaps this shining example that has been spearheading this thing that a few tag teams do now.
A lot of modern tag teams you see now are following the Young Bucks style.
Yeah, they're kind of Bucks clones, basically.
Pretty much.
Like even very good ones, like the Lucha Brothers. Lucha Brothers are kind of a Bucks clone.
Yeah, without a doubt. Even so, two real life brothers who have been wrestling literally their entire lives. They had a wrestling ring in their backyard when they were kids that their dad built for them. You're not going to see a tag team that's in sync better than them, except maybe the Lucha Bros, because again, also brothers. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they know each other inside and out for their movesets. I would be very, very, very surprised if they ever wrestled a singles match in AEW.
Yeah.
it would be a very shocking thing to us as well as much
somebody
of the world.
Somebody asked Nick the other day if he would ever wrestle singles, and
Again?
his response was his response was only if Matt retires before I do.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just not going to happen.
I just don't know if there's an interest for them to do that.
There isn't. I mean, Impact broke them up and made them wrestle singles during that short run, and it was very widely panned because they work better as a tag team. They can build off of each other. That's how they grew up. That's how they train. That's how they, that everything they do is doing it together and building off each other to continue momentum. They don't wrestle well by themselves. There's not really much to say. Even when I was just getting back into wrestling, I knew who the Young Bucks were. They were being on the indies. They were the most famous guys on the indies and were that for 10 plus years.
Yeah. And they're coming in, I guess you could kind of say near the end of their career, but I mean, the oldest one of them I think is just over 30. So it's not, they got a ways to go.
They have a ways to go, but it's also different because I think either Matt or Nick is like 32.
Yeah.
When you've been wrestling for 20 years, it does take a punishment. But yeah,
it does look as though they're not going to have any more ladder matches after the last ladder match they had with the Lucha
Definitely
Brothers.
not. Which, if we could tell you anyone to go watch one match, it'd probably be that one.
Yeah, that's one's crazy.
It was absolutely insane. The easiest way, and why we say this is because their mother, their wives, and many of their coaches and mentors told them after that match, if you ever do another ladder match again, I will personally kill you. Because there were so many people that were just actually scared for their safety after that ladder match, and well justified.
Right. Let's move on to Jurassic Express and their friend Marco Stunt. Jurassic Express, probably the most gimmicky tag team out of, I guess maybe best friends as well, but they're
what was
the idea
they had a name
here.
at All Out. It was like a small boy, a boy, and his dinosaur. It was
they've got a
dude.
couple. They got a couple of names. Let me explain this to you. Jurassic Express is made up of Luchasaurus, who is a literal dinosaur,
giant man. Dinosaur man.
Who's 7 feet tall, big 7 foot tall guy, and then Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy is the son of the late great Luke Perry, and his gimmick is that he is like Tarzan,
essentially,
basically.
yeah,
like young Tarzan.
Looks
and
like Tarzan.
So young Tarzan and his dinosaur wrestle in this match, and they've got like a small guy, tall guy thing going on, which makes watching them wrestle super entertaining. And then with them, they have this guy named Marco Stunt, and Marco Stunt is even smaller than Jungle Boy.
And apparently has scared half of the cast of being the Elite. Frankie Kazarian is terrified of him. Many times MJF is making fun of him. It's like, oh, you're an adult. I thought you were a child that got lost.
Yeah, Marco Stunt is maybe a little over 4 feet tall.
He's like 4'10", but he's like 30.
right. So it'll be he's just kind of this interesting combustible Edison third man. Not they of course have a win-loss record of 0-4-0, which is actually worse than Angelico and Jack Evans, but it was put to an internet poll which team the fans wanted to see in the tournament.
That record seems off, though.
I don't think that it is.
They haven't wrestled 4 tag team matches.
It might count.
They're counting the Battle Royale.
Yeah, they might be counting the Battle Royale. God, now I've lost my train of thought. So
it's two guys who came up in the business literally at the same time. They have pictures of where Luchasaurus in his initial coming up and Jungle Boy were at the same wrestling camps learning how to wrestle.
So it was put to a poll who people wanted to see in the tag team tournament, and they won over Angelico and Jack Evans.
Yeah,
that's why they're in.
Because they have been massively popular since their inception. Everyone has loved them. I'm a big fan. I think you have two guys here with a complete upside. They have so much potential, especially Jungle Boy, who's like 22 years old.
Yeah.
So much room to grow, so much potential, and just an amazing talent. Both of these guys have impressed me a considerable amount. We first saw Luchasaurus in Lucha Underground as one of the reptile clan.
Vibora.
It wasn't very impressive there, kind of just the big man.
He had one great match.
But
trained by Johnny Mundo.
Yeah, and then he's in the few years difference there. He's really taken a lot of time to train and get better, and has expanded upon that. And even as a big man, is very impressive and has a very wide moveset. I think they have a tough match ahead of them for the tournament, but it's going to be a very entertaining match.
Yeah, I agree. The Best Friends and their friend Orange Cassidy. It's interesting talking about these two best friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta, but Trent.
Question mark.
I can try and explain this gimmick to you, but it won't be nearly as funny as those two perform it. Just understand, the gimmick is that they're best friends with one another. And they love having a good time, and they're best friends. And
why wouldn't you want to do something with your best friend?
There's just this childlike naivety and quality to their character that can only be handled by dudes that are as legitimately funny as these two dudes are.
Yes, literally. You have the extreme childlike side of them, where you look at their intro video and their T-shirt, and you're like, what the fuck are these grown-ass men doing?
They stop in the middle of the match to have a hug, right? Like, it's...
And then you have the random pieces of being the Elite where they're acting like masked henchmen and taking people hostage and then threatening to kill children. And you're like, what the fuck, guys?
It's a very strange...
it's wonderful,
strange character, but... They managed to roll all of this stuff into two characters that are totally believable, and you just see them as like people that that's how believable the characters are. Is it's like, oh, I know that guy, like he's kind of this
that goofy guy, everyone knows.
Right.
And then you have Orange Cassidy, who's their new friend, who's just the wrestling sloth.
Orange Cassidy is a very interesting character. Orange Cassidy is so over this right now. Whatever he's doing, he's over it. Hands in his pockets the whole time. Just too cool for school. Totally cash, dude. Just racking out, I think you hire him because he's a walking meme.
Shit, dude. No need to use all of his energy. Just some taps will do it.
You put that guy on TV, and so many GIF images on Facebook the next day, and he's gonna really capture people's attention because it's such a strange and different joke, kind of a One Punch Man thing, kind of a imagine like the laziest character ever thing. There's a whole lot going into his character, but it's so weird. It's a very
meta kind of thing, though. It's like
it's like post wrestling.
It really is. His most recent T-shirt is hilarious. It's just the image not found picture, and then the URL of orange.jpg.
Right.
And you're like, he's too lazy to even give him the right picture. Like, okay.
Look forward to him if you haven't seen his stuff, because it's going to just be outrageous. Not straight, very serious wrestling, but the whole show isn't going to be that. It's 2 hours long, and it can't be. So I think people think that they want that, and then they would get it, and they would be like, oh, this show's kind of fucking tough to get through. Let's talk about the Lucha Brothers. The Lucha Brothers, of course, Phoenix and Pentagon Jr., Penta El Cerro Miedo, whatever he's calling himself right now, due to situations beyond his control. Two of the best wrestlers in the world, and probably the one tag team you could take off this list, split into singles, and they would both be huge single stars.
Yes, because they have performed as single stars and been absolute juggernauts.
Yeah, Phoenix, think Rey Mysterio, think crazy, wild luchador moves.
Yeah, Rey Mysterio 20 years ago, that's Phoenix.
Just as good as Rey Mysterio in his prime, if not faster, and just awesome. Pentagon, think like nothing you've ever seen before, like a Mortal Kombat character come to life. Super charismatic, perhaps the most charismatic man on the roster.
Easily. Guy that literally lives the gimmick.
Oh man,
100%.
100%, and one of the craziest looks in the industry. Just this guy walks into a room and you're like, oh my god, who is that?
Yeah. I saw them at Starcast. They both walk in to this, conference room kind of area in the most gangster, suits. They're like fucking velvet purple suits and full luchador mask and makeup, and you're like, Did you just schedule a hit on someone? Because I'm scared. Two of the most amazing guys on the roster. One hell of a tag team, too. It's like my favorite wrestlers, period. Both of us have Pentagon Jr. masks in our collection. Yeah.
He's the best.
He's awesome. And not to mention very humble and very down-to-earth guys who are seemingly embarrassed by the fame that this has all brought them. They can turn it on in the ring and be super charismatic, but outside of the ring, they're very quiet, very soft-spoken two guys that are like, why are you guys paying money to talk to me?
Unbelievable performers, too. They're both of them are going to be stars for this company, whether it's as the tag teams and the tag teams are pushed the way they're saying they will be, or it's as singles. I think either way, these guys have all the upside in the world, especially Pentagon's a phenomenon, and is a dark horse, and I think they're just waiting to get him locked down to a fucking contract, lock him down, for the love of God, because he is, he's got every bit of that aura that you find in the big guys in like a Stone Cold or a Rock or whatever. When they walk into the room, you're just like, oh, that's the guy.
He's kind of like his personality and his gimmick is like if Stone Cold was the Undertaker. It's that kind of a thing, that kind of a persona, that character is like, it's so unworldly and out of this world that you was like, okay, he's actually a really crazy person and likes to snap people's arms.
Yeah.
But he has the charisma and he can just be an evil guy or a good guy and no one cares at all.
Every movement seems precise and measured and thoughtful, and a really unbelievable character.
Absolutely. Easily one of the stiffest guys that I've ever seen. Like, you hear his kicks and his slaps throughout an arena. That's how loud. It's like a whip cracking when he kicks someone. And just the moveset is just fucking crazy.
Private Party. The Lucha Brothers win-loss record is 2-2-0. Private Party is, man, what to say about Private Party? It's like they stepped out of a Fat Albert cartoon or a Slim Jim commercial from the 90s.
Definitely feels like that after this week's Being the Elite.
They're just... they're two guys. They love to party. They got wild haircuts. They got these crazy clothes, and they're
damn good promos.
Yeah, great promos, and they just came to have a good time. They just came to have a party and enjoy themselves, surrounded by women and drinks and loud music, and it's Private Party. It's a pretty face value type of gimmick, but they're really good at it and really convincing at it. And more than that, they're phenomenal in the ring. Win-loss record of 1-2-0. They're in the tournament against the Young Bucks in the first round. They're going to be the first match of the tournament. So,
which is a repeat of a match that they did have on the indie scene. It was the Young Bucks.
HOJ at House of Glory.
Yeah, the final indie appearance by the Young Bucks. So it's a little bit of a rematch, but it's a rematch that no one's upset about because everything I've heard of the first time they did it was a barn burner match that was amazing. Everybody wants to see it again.
Yeah. The Dark Order. Dark Order is, out of all of this, probably one of the ones that's fallen pretty flat for everybody. It seems everybody feels like there needs to be more to this, or they need to figure out what exactly they're trying to do here because it's not working the way that people want it to work. The idea behind them is that they're a dark order.
They're like cult leaders, I guess. That's the easiest way to say it. But honestly, who the fuck knows? Wrestled on the indies as the Super Smash Bros. Obviously, they can't use that in AEW. That's a trademark by Nintendo. Nintendo's not going to let anyone use that name. I don't know. I haven't been very impressed by them, either the promos, which have fallen very flat, or their in-ring ability, which to me is very lazy.
They have won matches to their credit, they're
but it's not
trying to go somewhere with these guys. But the ring gear, the gimmick itself, the in-ring performances, they've all been between bad and okay. So
at best, that's all we can really say. Last up as a quote tag team is the Librarians. Though
they haven't worked as a tag together because it would be mixed, and they don't want to be. They don't want to do intergender matches.
Yeah, we'll say that they're a group.
Right.
The female librarian of Leva Bates, many people know her from the indies as or NXT as Blue Pants.
Right.
Great female performer. Does a lot with the drawback of she is partially deaf and was born deaf, so she does seem a little off in her ring movements, and people have criticized that without knowing, like, she's a little slow because it takes her a little bit longer to have that feel to things. Right. She's paired with Pretty Peter Avalon. I'm not very familiar with him. He's done some funny shit in being the Elite because he's over this shit. He's tired of the gimmick. He wants out.
So the idea behind this gimmick is that both Leva Bates and Pretty Peter Avalon are people that on their own probably wouldn't have earned a contract with AEW because they're not, quote, big enough or whatever.
Although Matt and Nick have threatened to continue paying Peter Avalon even though he wants out of the gimmick, and they threatened him with like 10 years and $2 million a year if he wants out. He has to stay in the company, which is, throwing shade at WWE, who makes people sit out their contracts and sit at home and get paid.
Yeah.
Just a very funny and tongue-in-cheek moment.
The idea being here that they were then saddled with these gimmicks that are obviously bad, that aren't going to get over, and they have to sort of deal with that. Pretty Peter Avalon, of course, completely over it, just like, I don't understand this character. Why are you making me play this character? But the powers that be are still making him do it. Leva, totally into the gimmick, has completely accepted it, and I think the funniest thing about this is that it's shown that whether or not you hate it and just go out and do it and put any effort into it, or you go out and you embrace it and you love it, a shit gimmick is still a shit gimmick and it's still not going to work. And I love that sort of commentary on it, you know what I mean? Because most people will be like, oh, Leva really embraces it and she gets super famous from it, and Peter hates it and it doesn't work because he hated it. They're not saying that. Instead, they're saying, like, no, a bad idea is a bad idea, whether you embrace it or whether you be like, yo, this is a fucking bad idea and I hate it. I think that's great.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. The library, it's entertaining. I think it'll be done soon.
Let's talk about the women briefly. The women have had a chance to kind of show themselves in various multi-man matches. They've had a couple of matches against each other. The women that we have listed here on the official roster are not all of the women that we've seen in the company. We've actually seen quite a few more. But these are probably the ones that we're going to run through in TV.
These are the only women that we know are 100% signed with AEW.
Yeah. Allie. My most vivid memory of Allie is her match with Brandy Rhodes at Fight for the Fallen was probably her most high-profile match that she's done. She has a win-loss record of 1-2-0. Her thing is that she's
split
kind of like split personality thing where she's kind of cutesy and stuff like that until somebody gets on her bad side, and then it's a whole other situation.
She turns into the quote demon bunny.
Right, she's passable in the ring, good in the ring, even. But we really haven't seen that much of her. So
yeah, had a long, run in Impact. She was one of the top baby faces with a little bit of heel stuff with the Demon Bunny aspect. Not really familiar with her. She's, like you said, she's serviceable. She's very cute. She's a good ring worker. She could do a lot better. And maybe she will do a lot better with being in different matches. We'll see. Time will tell. Next we have up Awesome Kong, who is from everywhere.
Everywhere, babe. I mean, not everywhere, but like Awesome Kong.
Definitely.
This giant hulking black woman who has worked all over the place. She worked Impact for a long time. She worked at WWE as Karma for a while. She's a cast member on Glow,
she's a scary lady.
Yeah, which is where most people probably know her from recently, would be her run on Glow. I can't for the life of me remember what her character is named on Glow, but she's on that show, and she's here as Awesome Kong, and she's kind of come in. She was brought in as sort of a combustible Edison to be added to a triple threat at Double or Nothing with Nyla Rose, and I'm trying to remember her name. She's not here anymore.
Kylie Ray.
Kylie Ray.
As well as now becoming Brandy's enforcer.
Yeah, now her and Brandy clearly have some sort of relationship going on in terms of Awesome Kong works for Brandy to some degree. Moving on to Bea Priestley. Bea Priestley, we haven't really seen much from. She has had a win and a loss. One of those loss being the Battle Royal.
Long run in Stardom, run in Stardom. From very, very famous in Stardom. Not very known in the American scene, since Stardom's a Japanese promotion and Asian promotion. Mm-hmm. She's kind of impressed me to a small extent. She's very sloppy in the ring, which has led to some injuries. Has a lot of heat in the locker room for various reasons. The main one, which is because she pretty much kicked Britt Baker in the face and gave her a concussion at Fight for the Fallen, which has upset a lot of people because she was being sloppy. Seems like a very talented young lady, but time will tell if we can see more of her. And definitely in a feud with Britt Baker from Fight for the Fallen and the women's battle royale. So that'll probably be one of her first matches in AEW.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Britt Baker is. Let's talk about Brandy Rhodes first. Brandy Rhodes is
It's Cody's wife.
The wife of Cody, a strong black woman who worked for WWE for a time, originally as a backstage correspondent.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of where she stayed because they didn't want to put that much work into training her how to wrestle. She was a figure skater before then. She
came in as one of the talent search girls to be in-ring talent, and then kind of just jumped at an opportunity to do some interviewing because she was also a journalist. She's had a multitude of careers. She's kind of I want to try something, so I'm just going to go out and try it kind of
She is the chief branding officer for the company.
Yes, which is not a bullshit title. That's a legit thing. It's a marketing term. like you said, she was in WWE. She was backstage, and then ring announcer under the name of Eden Styles. Mm-hmm. And then she left not long after Cody did because she was ready to move on and, not be held back by WWE, who didn't really want to let her do anything except be an announcer.
Yeah.
She's still working in the ring. She's got a long way to go if she wants to be really great. I don't know if her heart's really as much into it to hit that point, but she's a really good authority face, being Cody's wife. You'll almost always see her walking out with Cody to one of his matches. Very big in giving back to the community and making AEW a company that is for everyone. She is the proponent of Culture City, the inclusivity company where they help people with PTSD, autism, various things that would keep you from really going to a loud, event like a wrestling show
with a bunch of lights,
bunch of explosions, all that kind of shit.
Lots of people all around you.
Yeah, and so that was one of the big things that she was a big proponent for, as well as her and Cody raised a lot of money for animal shelters with their dog Pharaoh. So, there's a lot to talk about. Brandy, her in-ring is probably the least mentionable thing.
Win-loss record of 1-1-0 for Brandy Rhodes. Britt Baker is perhaps sort of poised to be their biggest star in their division.
Definitely one of the three, I'd say.
Britt Baker is a legitimate doctorate of dentistry, practices as a dentist in Pittsburgh.
For now.
For now, yes, as her day job. It looks as though she intends to keep that. I don't know why she wouldn't.
It's hard when you travel a lot, but fair enough, yeah.
That's legitimately rolled into her gimmick, that she's also a dentist. She's good in the ring. None of these women are absolute unbelievable ring talents. But she's good in the ring just like the rest of them, to the degree that most of them are. She's as good as anybody in there.
Yeah, she's the, girlfriend, fiance, maybe, I'm not sure, of Adam Cole. Who's
a big star for NXT.
Yes, big star from NXT, was a gigantic star for New Japan and on the Indies. When I first heard her name, I expected her to be a little bit like Brie Bella, where she's just, Daniel Bryan light kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I expected her to be Adam Cole light, but she has her own style. She does not use his moveset at all. She does her own thing, which is very refreshing, very surprising to see that kind of a thing. I think she's got a lot of room to grow, and I need to see her give more promos before I'll say anything about that, but in ring, she's got a lot of room to grow. She's got a lot of slow spots, a lot of weaknesses, but comparing her to the other women on the roster, she's like real on that same kind of level, so it's not really as a jarring thing.
Hikaru Shida is one of the Joshi women that they brought in, probably the one with the most succinct and obvious sort of star quality to her, where you're really like, oh, okay, this woman going to do something when she walks in the room with her ring gear, with the way that she acts in the ring, is great. Rumored romantic interest of Kenny Omega. And
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And has put on a couple of great matches in the promotion. Her win-loss record sits at 1-1-0. She's consistently seen with a kendo stick or a Singapore cane. Beyond that, we really haven't seen that much from her. I'm looking forward to seeing her more on the roster because she is, I think, the Joshi woman with the most sort of star quality to her. Nyla Rose is one half of the women's title match that you're going to see on the first episode. Nyla Rose is known as the Native Beast. She takes riches and breaks bitches, in her own words. And she is a very interesting choice for the company. She is, as we talked about before on the show, wrestling is all about giving people heroes, giving everybody a hero that they can root for, right? And she is a hero to so many people who don't really get to have that in wrestling right now for a couple of reasons. She's a Native American, which is outside of, Wahoo McDaniel and whatnot, kind of different. It has a tumultuous history with pro wrestling,
Mickey
right?
James that no one really believes.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty underrepresented, and beyond that, she's also a trans woman.
Definitely a first that I've heard
Deeply underrepresented, and is a real opportunity for AEW to put their money where their mouth is on this. AEW is for everyone thing, and she has knocked down the doors and become a big favorite for a lot of people because I think especially politically where we are now, I think we're ready for that. Again, just like Sonny Kiss, there's going to be people who see that and shut off the show, but the people that see that and shut off the show, good fucking riddance. Don't come
It's
back.
already started. There's been a lot of very negative things in the internet about her being the one who will be challenging for the title, purely because she is trans, and that's the only reason.
Right.
No one gives a shit any other reason.
I mean, people have brought, it's because she's not a good wrestler, right? And it's like, well, okay, like, that's true of a lot of these women. They're not amazing wrestlers. She's as good as anybody else, really, here. And we all know what's actually bothering.
Yeah. I'm cautious of her possibly being the first champion, more of the fact for it's when you have a very the strong woman type, it's very difficult to book matches against that because you have to protect the image of she's the strong woman, and
Yeah.
so you kind of paint yourself into a little bit of a corner there. So that's where I personally I'm a little cautious of it.
But she's taken losses before already.
And I think her promos have been awesome. I think she's a pretty good wrestler. Comparing, a lot of people have been comparing her to Nia Jax, and that. I
don't think that's fair at all. I think she's a much better promo.
She's a much better promo. She's a much better wrestler. She knows more than two moves. Yeah. She can actually move around the ring at a good pace and keep up with the other women in the ring with her, and not just throw them. So I don't think that. I agree, it's not fair. I can't wait to see where she goes from here. I think she's got a lot of upside. Personally, I hope she doesn't win because I think she does. As a character, it's better for her to chase this and to run roughshod through the roster than for her to be the champion and then run roughshod through the roster. But when you look at her opponent, Rijo, it's going to be a tough fucking sell. You have Nyla the Beast versus a 70, 80-pound Japanese girl who's literally tiny.
In a tutu.
Yeah.
Her win-loss record is 1-2-0. Penelope Ford really hasn't had a real match on the card. She's known as the bad girl. She used to be with Joey Janela. Now she's with Kip Sabian.
Yeah, it's a real feels bad moment for Joey Janela having to continue working with his ex-girlfriend, especially at Double or Nothing where they were still paired together as the wrestler and manager thing, and it was a real. You could see the tension there. I think they've booked away from that because that's not cool. Being honest, haven't seen much of Penelope Ford. I seen some stuff on the internet of like random YouTube clips and stuff. In those, she's very much impressed me because she's very athletic, very high flyer kind of style. I look forward to seeing more of her. Hopefully not with Kip Sabian because fuck that guy. But I'm looking forward to seeing more of her and giving her some matches. I think she can do a lot of good stuff and might end up being the best talent in the AEW women's roster.
Yeah, I don't know because I just haven't seen her on the show. So next up is Rijo. She's facing Nyla Rose for the Women's Championship on the first episode. She is a Joshi wrestler, has been doing it since she was 8 years old. She's been wrestling.
Yes, literally more of her life has been wrestling than not wrestling.
By a significant margin,
Yes.
because she's not that old. She's not that old. She's probably 23, 24.
Ish, yeah.
And she's been doing it since she was
2/3 of her
years
life
old.
has now been wrestling. That's insane.
Yeah. She has a win-loss record of 3-1-0. She's okay in the ring. I haven't seen her do anything that has been like, oh my God, Rijo, she's clearly the star. I think her ring gear is a little underdeveloped. Honestly, it feels kind of civilian.
Yeah. You and I kind of got turned off by her. I think it was either at Fighter Fest or Fight for the Fallen where she did the 619 maneuver, but at a snail's pace, and it just looked
really
so
slow.
bad.
Yeah, so, and it could be we just haven't seen her work with the right people or whatever, but it's been kind of a slow start for her, kind of a tough start for her. Nevertheless, she has the best win-loss record out of basically anybody else in the division, so it makes perfect sense that she's in the title picture. Is from a
She also has just a really fascinating story.
Yeah. It is kind of a dangerous mismatch, her against Nyla Rose.
It really is.
But I think that's kind of the point. They want this sort of David Goliath sort of feel to the match. So, yeah. Sadie Gibbs is also here because she's on the roster. She's only had one match. It's been a battle royal. So
her and Penelope Ford were announced a long, long time ago. Penelope was kind of involved with AEW, doing stuff with Brandy and Britt Baker off and on through being the Elite and such. Sadie Gibbs was announced, and then we never heard anything else. If you follow her on Instagram, she's like a big fitness model, and that's really all I know about her. There's not much I could say. She's fit. She's very fit. She's very pretty. I don't know anything about her wrestling ability, but she's been signed under AEW. Honestly, one of the longest signings of the company.
Yeah, one of the early women's signings that we heard about. So those are the people that you're going to see on AEW. You'll probably see other people as well come out of the woodwork. I know this Jericho thing that's coming up. We're going to talk about the matches that you're going to see on the debut before you go. The first match we're going to see on the night is Cody versus Sammy Guevara. This is sort of a big upset style match for Sammy Guevara if he wins. I understand the logic behind this because they want to have, first of all, Cody, with the history that he has in his name and himself, be the first thing that people see, something that they can be somewhat familiar with, somewhat comfortable with, against Sammy Guevara, who is young blood, who is new, who is great in the ring. The other sort of nice sort of kayfabe example of why they would do this is Cody did have that match with Darby Alan, who is very similar to Sammy Guevara in terms of his stature, and it went to a time limit draw. So there's a showing that somebody like Sammy Guevara has a chance against Cody. The implications of this is that Cody has a match against Chris Jericho for the AEW title at Full Gear, the next pay-per-view for AEW. And if he loses this match against Sammy Guevara, that's probably not going to be the case for him. Yep. So,
card subject to change at any moment.
Right.
This match is all downside for Cody, all upside for Sammy. If Sammy loses, there's not really anything bad that happens. As long as he gives on a good match, he's coming out ahead. If Cody loses or comes to a draw, he's losing out on his title shot, which, Cody's kind of in the twilight of his career. There aren't many title shots left. So you got to protect
certainly
that as
not
much
enough
as you
that
can.
you could say no to one, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can also say, like, oh, yeah, well, Cody runs the fucking company. He can give himself a title shot whenever he wants to. It's like, that's not him.
Yeah, it's not true.
He's going to earn it. If he doesn't earn it, he's not going to do it.
Even if he could. Tony runs the company.
Yeah, that's also true.
Cody just works there. MJF versus Brandon Cutler. This match is going to be great for getting heat on MJF. Really a chance for MJF to beat up the audience, basically, because Cutler is this figurehead of this generation that has kids now but still plays video games and still enjoys D&D and isn't afraid to like the things that they like, right? And then you have MJF, who is this jockey, rich asshole, gonna come out there and basically tee off on him verbally, with Cutler being able to come up from the bottom and hopefully score some sort of quick pin on MJF and take him out. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's pretty much the best way to describe it.
Pac versus Hangman, which was just recently announced. This is going to be exciting. The two of those guys going at it.
This is a match that none of us were expecting to see on television.
Yeah, this is a pay-per-view match.
Definitely a pay-per-view match, and that's when we were all expecting to see it again. But they came out on the most recent Road to episode and said, "Yeah, we're doing this, so get ready, guys." And I can't wait, man. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome, man. I'm really looking forward to that. That's gonna be, I think,
probably match of the night, honestly.
In terms of bell to bell, probably the strongest match. Nyla Rose versus Rijo for the AEW Women's World Championship. This will be the first ever Women's World Championship match for AEW. We've talked about this match a little bit. Nyla Rose coming in the big monster, Rijo coming in this sort of undersized underdog, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with this. I think Nyla Rose seems like the choice here, both because of the great press that it will give them, also because I think having her as this badass big champ that people have to challenge is a great look for them, a great idea for them, and pulling in having Rijo for the second time beat Nyla Rose, who outweighs her by a lot, would be easily difficult for Nyla Rose as a character to recover from. I think
easily 3 to 4 times her body weight.
Yeah, so I think Nyla Rose would be the one for me who I think should get this, but it doesn't matter. I think it's going to be a great match. It is going to have this sort of David versus Goliath quality to it, but hopefully they'll give it plenty of time. Hopefully they'll give it plenty of respect, and we'll really see a legitimate women's championship match.
Yeah, I mean, being honest with you, I can't really see them adding any more matches to this first card, because once you factor,
I don't think they need it.
They don't. When you factor in, commercials and stuff, and there will be various promos. Jon Moxley will be appearing during this card, so there will be various things to take up some time. So I think 5 matches is adequate for 2 hours.
The main event will be the Elite, which is the team of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, versus Chris Jericho and 2 partners of his choosing. We still do not know who these mystery partners will be. There has been speculation that it will be LAX, but LAX appeared at the last pay-per-view, so it seems kind of weird that they would still pretend it's a mystery when they've already appeared. It will probably be 2 new people, which will be really interesting.
Like the Revival?
I don't think they can, though. They're still under contract, but
that's what everyone wants. I would be down for this too, but
I would freak out, but I don't think it's possible.
I don't think it's possible either. The easy money is to say, oh yeah, it's probably going to be LAX. They're just being quiet about it because they want to be quiet about it. I also believe it's probably going to be actual mystery partners, because it's Jericho. He probably doesn't like LAX.
I don't even think it's that. I don't know. Reaching back, who it could maybe Juventud and Psychosis?
That'd be cool.
It'd be cool. It'd be weird, but it would be like, oh shit, okay.
You could do Dean Malenko.
You could. I don't know if Dean wants to get back in the ring,
for
but
a one-off,
he
would. If anyone could get him back in the ring, it would be Jericho. Yeah. And he's already in AEW. The dude's still in amazing shape. I don't know who the third guy would be, but you could pull in Dean Malenko and go a very, very old school of the Lions from WCW. If you want to pull that, if you want to go hardcore on the nostalgia, you'll do something like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they go for. I don't know what they will. But we hope you've enjoyed this primer for AEW on TNT. AEW Dynamite debuting next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. It's going to be a hell of a ride. It's been a hell of a ride so far. We hope that you'll stay with us each and every week as we talk about AEW. YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars. It makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy. Too sweet.
Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite, Twitter @Seeing the Elite. Become a part of our ring crew. Become a part of our favorite fans in the whole world. AEW fans from all over the world talking about everything as it comes out. Shout out to the champ Pumpkin Skull. Visit us at tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite. Get the invite and become a part of the crew. Until then, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get out of here. I don't have anything else for these people before we go. Jonathan, I don't think you do either.
No, I'm going to save it for Sunday.
We'll be back on Monday morning for the very last time before we move to Fridays and before AEW on TNT, as well as our Patreon that is launching at noon on that day. Be ready for it. Thank you so much. Go out and change the world.